I really wanted to understand, how do people and organizations change? I understood that they changed, and I had lots of evidence about that, but I didn't actually understand the sort of the black box of how. And it turns out when I went into all the literature and did my research, nobody really understood it either. So we talk about change, but and we make up stories about how people change, but we really don't know. And as I was and so I followed people for like 4 years. So it's called action research. But during that time, I was nearly dead from lupus. I had to very carefully disentangle these mechanisms for change within myself. And as I did that, I completely healed from lupus. I discovered how other people change. I discovered how organizations change. And I learned how to decode what's called embodied knowledge. So most of what we know lives in our bodies, like 95% of it. And so I have a whole methodology for revealing that, decoding that. And it really helps people not just understand their purpose or their core capacities, but it really helps people understand, what does right relationship look like for them in the world. So I can, lots of coaches help people with their purpose or any of that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's really helpful, but that doesn't answer the question of, where do you belong in the world? How do you contribute to the world? And what is the best way that the world unfolds in you?
Coaches would say that there's two kinds of coaches. There's the coaches that are in touch with their body and the knowledge that their body holds. And there are coaches that avoid the knowledge that their body holds. Who's right?
If most of what we know lives in our bodies, and if we ignore what's in our bodies, then we're ignoring most of what we know. So I don't know about right or wrong, but there's a certain explanatory power that comes with paying attention to. Now, the thing is that there's a lot of fluff out there in terms of how we pay attention to our bodies. A lot of really bad fluff. And I am very critical and discerning about that fluff, and I have a lot to say about that fluff. And I might say some of that, I might approach some of that in the conference, but I don't want to necessarily like knock other people's work. But I'll give you the preview. I never, ever, ever ask. So I've done 15 years of research on the types of questions that get at this body of knowledge.
Okay.
I never, ever ask anybody, what do you think or how do you feel? So let's just start there. Never.
You realize there are coaches all over the Midwest right now going, wait a second, I just lost one of my main tools if I can't ask that.
Well, that's just because there's a huge suite of better questions to ask.
Okay, give me one example of one of those better questions.
No, not without context. I won't do that.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you
no,
just took
I won't do it without context.
Okay, so you just took us to school in a really useful way. Understanding that, hey, what's going on around the client in the moment really does call for that level of personalization, customization in your questioning. Well, let me ask a better question then.
Okay.
What are some factors that you consider as you try to customize that question with the context in mind?
So the first thing I always try to discern is, what is the need? And oftentimes the need may or may not be articulated by the client,
okay,
right? Because I've come to, and I say this is true about, I think most human beings, myself included, are not necessarily capable of accurate self-reflection or self-assessment. Because if most of what we know lies outside of our conscious awareness, then how can I go around saying I'm capable of accurate self-assessment?
Okay.
Right? So this is where my saying is that we enter the gates of heaven 2 by 2. We need each other to help see ourselves. This is one thing that I learned when I was doing my research. I learned the difference between what's called a disembodied question and an embodied question. Okay. A disembodied question is, if you ask children, most kids around the world, what did you learn at school today? What do they say? Nothing. Right. Is that because billions of children every day are not learning anything? No. It's because it's a bad question. It's a disembodied question. So because learning, what did you learn, is an abstraction. It takes them away from their actual body of experience. So if I want to know what my kids learned at school today, I actually say, so tell me about a time today when you felt really interested or engaged in what you were doing. So now they can locate a moment that's both in their body and outside their body at the same time. Now we have 220 billion neural networks of information that we're sorting through in every minute. So out of the infinite number of stimuli that came into them, they're going to tell me about a particular moment that's both internal and external at the same time. That's an embodied question, because I don't actually want to know what people think. I want to know what was the context, what inputs did they take in, and how did they respond? Because most of us have stories and identities about how we respond that actually cover up our experience.